You can't be busy. You're five.
Welcome to the Mind Your Movies podcast. I'm Ryan,
I'm Shane.
and today we're talking about movies about magic.
Yes, magic movies,
That's right.
I guess. Uh, yeah, Wizards is one of our movies. The 1977 Ralph Bakshi animated movie, and Ponyo, the 2008 Miyazaki movie. Both animated, both magical in quite different ways. But yeah, we're gonna have some spoilers for both movies, so watch them before you listen to the whole episode. But yeah, that's your warning. Before we get into the movies, we're going to talk about what we've seen recently. So, Ryan, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I'll start with I just saw last night Heart Eyes, the new like Valentine's Day slasher movie. Um, I would give it a kind of thumb in the middle. It's if you know you like slashers, it is like a themed slasher. It's nowhere near as good as something like Thanksgiving in my opinion, but yeah, whatever. It's an enjoyable slasher watch.
All right. Real hot start. Real hot start.
Yeah, not the best thing, but
Yeah, a lot of Valentine's Day themed movies coming out this year. Seems, I don't know, they're trying to capitalize on any holiday they can get, pretty
yeah.
much.
Love Hurts will be fun. I haven't seen that yet, but
Is
that's on
that
my
the
list.
action one with
Yeah,
Ki Hoi Kwan? Is that his name?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm probably not going to see many of these Valentine's Day themed movies, to be honest. But I watched a movie from 2024, Cuckoo. It's streaming on Hulu. And yeah, it was really good. I remember it looked interesting when it came out. I didn't end up seeing it, and then it got kind of mixed reviews. But I thought it was pretty great. I thought Hunter Schafer was really good in the lead role, and I thought the atmosphere was really interesting and unique. And sort of the unknown and unexplainable aspects of the story kind of added to the horror and the dread and the mystery of it all. So I thought it was really well done, and yeah, thought it was pretty great.
Nice.
So
I saw it when it came out. Yeah, and I think I remember liking it quite a bit. And I think I'd also recommend if people haven't seen it, especially now it's streaming. So,
yeah, exactly. So if you got Hulu, you can watch it with just a couple ad breaks.
uh,
Unless you have the good Hulu.
yeah,
Unless
you
you're
pay the
old.
$70. I don't know what it is.
It's probably like two extra bucks or something.
Yeah, I don't know. These things are getting kind of outrageous, but
Yeah.
you know, either way. Um, I'm looking through some of my recently watched stuff, and a lot of stuff's coming up from early in film. I'm looking at a lot of like early 1900 stuff from George Méliès because the Harvard Film Archive did a Méliès thing last weekend uh, with with a bunch of his stuff being shown from kind of his middle era, when he had started doing a lot of sets and props and stories, but wasn't quite doing the lengthy stuff like the voyages that he does at the end of his career. And so I got to see actually two of them were on film. So I got to see the Kingdom of the Fairies from 1903 and the Merry Frolics of Satan from 1906, both on 35 millimeter film and hand painted, which pretty awesome. What a treat!
Yeah, that's awesome.
And also just very fun. I mean, also much of his stuff is, uh, uh, I'm pretty sure all of his remaining stuff is like pretty easily accessible at this point with like web archive and all that. Um, a lot of his stuff was hand painted, so you actually can find like different versions sometimes where there's like maybe two surviving prints of some of the hand painted ones, and they're different slightly, but which is kind of cool. So totally recommend if people haven't dived into much Melier stuff, do it. He's a blast and
Yeah.
influential, right? So
Oh yeah, but definitely like Trip to the Moon and all of his stuff. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's pretty easily accessible. I think it's all public domain now, and it's just on the internet. So and they're all short. So you can spend an afternoon, you can spend an hour and watch like four of his most influential movies, and like pretty crazy what he was doing so early in film. Very imaginative, very creative, and very cool. And cool that you got to see it in a theater and projected on film a couple. So
yeah. Oh, and there was live music too, which was cool. So
oh, that's cool.
yeah,
Nice.
that might have been the coolest part.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's like it was very like the original experience almost.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's cool. Nice. Well, recently I've been reading Quentin Tarantino's cinema speculation book, and a lot of the chapters, not all of them, but most of them are sort of about a particular movie. So I watched a couple that I hadn't seen yet in anticipation of reading those chapters. So I watched Sisters, the Brian De Palma movie, and I watched The Outfit from 1973, and The Outfit was pretty great. It was really good. Uh, Robert, it has a pretty stacked cast, like Robert Duvall, Joe Don Baker, and then a bunch of guys like Timothy Carey and Elisha Cook from like sort of classic Hollywood actors. Elisha Cook has like literally one scene where he's like he works at like a diner. He's like the equivalent of a bartender at a diner, but it's like kind of just cool to have like a classic character actor have this one tiny little role. Um, but yeah, it's so I watched it before I read the chapter, and then I ended up reading the chapter recently about it, and I definitely see how this movie influenced Tarantino in sort of the way he tells his crime stories and all that. So yeah, really good. Not necessarily one of the best movies of the 70s or anything like that, but I think as far as like a deep cut, it's really good and worth watching. And I watched it on I think I watched it on Tubi. So there you go. Easily accessible for people to watch.
Wow, Tubi is amazing. They have the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Like pretty big never thought the Super Bowl would be on Tubi.
Yeah.
If you had to a month ago, if you asked me, "Hey, the Super Bowl is going to be on a streaming service," guess Tubi wouldn't have been top 10. It wouldn't have been. It
No.
wouldn't have, might not have been top 20. I might have guessed Paramount Plus before I guessed Tubi.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I might have guessed the Criterion Channel before I guessed Tubi. Just kidding.
But amazing that it'll be widely accessible, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah,
And I mean, just in general, Tubi having so much, it does have a lot of like classic movies, which is
it
pretty
does.
cool.
Yeah, and sometimes the quality varies on there, and obviously the ads are not ideal, but it is nice still to have stuff just easily accessible. Especially because like the outfit, I was trying to look and it doesn't seem like it has a Blu-ray release or anything. So it's a little hard to find. So it's nice that Tubi can have stuff like that on there.
Yeah. I will say, I think when we watched The General a few episodes back, um, I tried watching, I think Tubi's where I went to try to watch it, and they had like they had like a colorized version, with a few other things. So, again, the quality always varies, but yeah, as long as, you know what you're watching, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. Um,
Anything else you wanted to cover before we get into our Wanyo episode?
One last thing that I watched recently, which is I rewatched Operation Avalanche on Blu-ray, which was pretty awesome. This movie, it's Matt Johnson directed, and it's a mockumentary about like some film students that get recruited by the CIA to go and first figure out if Kubrick's a spy, but then eventually they try to like fake the moon landing because they realize NASA can't do it. And it's a delightful movie, and uh it's very fun, very enjoyable. uh I have to recommend it. It's amazing. Watch it.
Nice. Well, are you all set with that? One
Yeah.
last thing I'll recommend that I watched it twice, I think, since the last time we recorded, is Anima, the short film on Netflix. If any of you guys have Netflix out there, it's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and starring um, Tom York from Radiohead. I just blanked for a second. I was like, my brain exploded for a second. But yeah, the it's pretty awesome. Just it's basically just a 15-minute like experimental music video kind of, but it's got some, I guess maybe you'd consider it interpretive dance. I don't know. I'm not really a dance. I know nothing about dance at all. I don't dance. I don't know anything about it. But the movie's really good. But yeah, it's pretty awesome, and it's only 15 minutes long, and it's PTA, so it's like just watch it if you have Netflix. So yeah, that's
Nice.
a little recommendation for people. And
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, one of the awesome things about these short films, even, modern short films, old short films, whatever, is, you watched it once on your own, and then did you show someone else?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's so
Well,
great.
yeah,
You get like, they're so short, they're easy to show people, they're easy to watch. Like you said with George Méliès stuff, like you can watch a ton of that in the same length that you'd watch. I mean, it's The Brutalist, right? Like
yeah,
you might be able to watch every, no, but you can
yeah.
watch a good amount of Méliès stuff a high percentage of the stuff that's remaining, um, in the amount of time that it takes to watch like an Oscar movie potentially. So,
Yeah, yeah, true. So
and
yeah,
just other short films.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I guess that's that for what we've seen recently. And time to get into, I guess we're calling it Wanyo. There
Yeah.
are some options. It could be
No,
Wazanyo, could be Wizardanyo, could be Pizzard.
no, that's the one. That's the bad one.
Yeah, Pizzard is not Pizzards is not as fun. But it could be Pawn Yizzards. But we're going Wanyo because it rolls off the tongue real
Wanyo's
nice.
easy.
Yeah.
Wanyo's quick, easy, smooth.
Yeah. So it's called Wanyo. We're starting with wizards. This was Ryan's pick. So yeah, do you want to get into it?
Yeah, sure. This is the 1977 Ralph Bakshi movie. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, which is kind of nice. Um, I'm a big fan of those shorter movies, but um, it's got like a whole range of different animation styles that are shown off. Um, and essentially, the setup is that I think they say 2 million years after nuclear apocalypse.
Yeah, maybe.
Crazy. And fantasy creatures have evolved, I guess, or whatever, are now here on Earth.
It's post nuclear apocalypse. So humans have mutated, and that's how they sort of justify all these magical beings, I
Yeah.
guess.
So there's wizards, there's elves, there's I don't know, I assume dwarves and all sorts of things. There's
Yeah, yeah,
elves, there's talking lizards, I think maybe, and or at least yeah, I think that lizard talks. I don't know, but all sorts of weird stuff going on. And essentially there's two, I think, twin wizards that are born at the same time. Avatar, who's good, and Black Wolf, who's bad
yep,
and very iconically bad. Um, but they fight, and Avatar wins the fight, but then 3,000 years later, uh, I think Black Wolf is trying to fight back or something, raises an army and uses propaganda in a war against
yeah.
against
Insane.
the Avatar's kind of people, the fantasy people. And so really this movie kind of takes Black Wolf kind of uses technology and guns and stuff against Avatar's magic creatures. So that's
Yeah,
kind of the setup, and there's a lot that there's a lot to talk about, I think. But
yeah. The basic set. I mean, yeah. The technology versus magic is sort of set up as like the bad guys are technology, the good guys are magic and like nature. Um, Yeah, there's like a crazy prologue of just them just like dumping
yeah,
information onto you. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on in this movie.
yeah,
It's too much exposition.
and that prologue's not even it. About
Oh, there's like yeah.
yeah, that you get like a few different narration scenes where it's like, and they show you like these pictures, and it like pans around and zooms into different parts of the pictures or drawings or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a different animation style, which is kind of interesting, but it's just so much exposition, and it dumps like what I just said about the movie was maybe half of the amount of time that it took them to get through like the shortest one of these exposition sequences.
Yeah. And there's a lot more. There's so much exposition. It really slows down and like makes everything more confusing than it needs to be. A lot of that stuff, because they also, you said 2 million years. I don't even remember, but there's like at one point it's like okay, then 3,000 years later it's this, and then it's like oh, remember 10,000 years ago this happened, and there's all these different
Yeah.
dates, and I have no idea what like that. All that just made things more confusing, to be honest. Um, and I feel like almost a counterpoint to this is the new Denis Villeneuve Dune movies, where they really don't give you much exposition at all. They just now the huge difference is that this had a very small budget, and the Dune movies have a gigantic budget, and they also have 5 hours to cover one book, whereas this is only 80 minutes, and they barely had enough money to finish it. So very different circumstances, but I feel like the Dune movies do show like why showing and not telling can be so much better
Hmm.
and just the way the audience can pick up on things while you're telling the story rather than trying to dump all this information on us. And I feel like it sort of started the movie off on a negative foot because it was just It was just too much. Yeah. But also I think the way that they're almost like Ken Burns, like going I think this is before Ken Burns, but like the way that they have still images and they're just kind of gliding over them was just a way to save money also. Because from what I understand, this movie had a pretty small budget and they were running out of money to finish it basically.
Yeah, and I think Ralph Bakshi actually so pays for when the movie does run out of money. Ralph Bakshi actually pays for the rotoscoping process for the war scenes
Yeah.
because those weren't done yet and they would have cost way too much to really
Yeah.
do in any other way. So because of that and the budget, that's kind of why we get the rotoscoping, and I think you're right. It's also why we get this like still image movement here during the narration, and I think that kind of provides this like like kaleidoscope of aesthetics where like everything kind of looks different and even like within the same scene you have like kind of mixed matched aesthetic with like water painted backgrounds and like really cartoony characters
Yeah.
and that really didn't hit for me.
Mm.
I was pretty turned off by the rapidly changing animation style.
Interesting. I think that's one of the parts of the movie that kept me interested, I guess. Like I actually kind of liked the rotoscoping sequences. Apparently it seems like I think I just got this from like Wikipedia, but they took like footage from the movies like Zulu, El Cid, Battle of the Bulge, and Alexander Nevsky. So those seem like the movies that they took footage from and they rotoscoped it. And it kind of makes for really interesting imagery. And I think this movie does have sort of a 70s psychedelic appeal where I could see like on it. So I watched this on archive.org. I was not under the influence of any drugs at the time. And honestly, it wasn't
Yeah.
that fun to watch, but I could see like a bunch of 70s hippies smoking weed and watching this and like having fun. Like it's very colorful, and I do think some of the animation is interesting, especially the background. I like the backgrounds and the rotoscoping probably the most. The cartoony characters or whatever. And that's kind of Ralph Bakshi's thing, I guess. Uh, Cartoony characters and women with barely any clothes.
Oh God.
Yeah,
We gotta get to that too.
yeah, I'll get to that. So yeah, I do feel like there is some appeal to this movie. It's just I feel like you kind of have to be high to enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience. So I watched this sober and also on Web Archive.
Hmm.
Um and uh and yeah, I felt pretty much the same way going through. I was like, I can definitely see the appeal for when this came out and the group of people that I imagine are watching this movie. And I probably would have enjoyed it more if I was even if I was just like drinking and like hanging out with some buddies and watching it or something. But watching it sober and alone, well,
It's not as good.
it was kind of sucked.
Yeah, honestly, this movie would be good to put on in the background at a party.
Yeah.
If you had like well, any kind of a party and you just threw it on in the background, that would be good. Because then if you just have some strange imagery, people could kind of like watch it and be like, "What the fuck is this?" And then they could just move on and not listen to all the narration trying to explain this made up lore. And
Yeah.
so yeah, overall, it seems like neither of us really loved the movie. Um, but yeah, I mean, should we talk about the horniness of the movie?
Um yeah. Yeah, we should. Unfortunately. I mean, it starts off with just Eleanor's character, who's a fairy, and the first and certainly the most prominent female that we see in the movie. Uh,
Yep.
we see a few others just like thrown in here and there, but she's
There's hookers at one point.
yeah, yeah, and she might be the only speaking female character other than the narrator. I don't know for sure, but
Maybe,
I
yeah.
would bet money on that actually. But and all that to say, she's pretty much naked.
Yeah.
She has kind of a toga on, or like a
I have no idea how to describe it. It's almost like a jumper.
yeah,
Or it's kind of like lingerie, honestly.
yeah,
Basically lingerie. It's like and her nipples are poking through literally
yeah,
every single time. She got giant boobs and she's it's like yeah.
yeah. It was weird and uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great.
Again, maybe if you're high or or whatever, maybe that would, I don't know. But overall, that whole aspect of the movie, every time she was on screen, I was like, ah, man, I I hope nobody sees me watching this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't watch this in a public setting. Don't
Yeah.
watch this on a plane where the person they're gonna be like, so there's this naked fairy character and a bunch of Nazi propaganda. What the fuck are you watching?
Yeah, we haven't even gone. Yeah,
Don't
man.
watch this unless you're sitting next to Elon Musk on a plane.
Yeah. Whew. um, but yeah, it's also. I mean, it is kind of striking to me that like the only females in this movie, other than the narrator, are like they all have like these giant boobs, like just hanging out.
Highly sexualized.
Yeah. And that sucks.
Yeah,
That's bad.
yeah, definitely I agree. Um, well, also there's a lot of attempts at comedy that don't really land at all. There's some sequences with like these two evil soldiers and they're like these goofball characters and it's like very cartoony humor, but it's not really funny. It's kind of rough. Um, the movie's tone is weird because none of the
Yeah.
comedy really works, but none of the drama really works either. Like none of the characters work that well. I don't know. It's just
I agree. And also that comedy scene with the two gas mask characters. I wrote down about that because it was so weird. It's cut into a narration bit. So there's like it's doing the whole still image thing with the narrator, and then it stops that for a brief second and it shows us this scene of the two people in gas mask and one thinks that the other one's dead and he's like, "No."
yeah,
And then he stands up. After a while, like the guy like
yeah,
clearly makes him think he's dead or whatever, right? And then he gets shot, and then he shoots him.
yeah,
He,
accidentally.
yeah, whatever. But
And then it goes back to narration, right? And
yeah,
it's just like a little vignette. It's like they were like, all right, this is way too much exposition narration. We just need to break this up with a little comedy vignette for no reason.
give them a laugh. Give them a laugh. Yeah, it was not funny though. It was
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that happens a few times with the jokes. I mean, not necessarily being mixed into the narration. That was really strange. But just the jokes in general, I think definitely usually did not hit for me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, one thing I did like about the movie was the concept.
Yeah,
The concept
that's
of
why I picked it.
yeah, yeah, true. And yeah, and the poster looks good. And what's his name? Necron 99, and then he
Yeah,
becomes Peace. He's like a I don't know what he is. An assassin at the beginning, and then he's I don't know. It's weird, whatever. But he's the main guy on the poster, and he's barely even in the movie.
he gets like shot or what I thought was killed pretty early in. After, by the way, like slaughtering like people in homes or whatever.
Hmm.
Like he just kicks down a door and then you see like people in the house or whatever, dwarves or elves or whatever, right? And then he just shoots them all down.
Yeah,
Crazy. And
yeah,
then he gets killed and or I thought he got killed, but then he's on a table later on and they're like uh, not like interrogating him maybe or something, but I don't know.
I have no idea. At
It's
some point, it seems like he's like almost a robot who can be like reprogrammed, and they change him into into this guy named Peace.
yeah.
I don't know.
That sounds right. It was
Yeah,
pretty confusing and yeah, I wish yeah, I don't know. That guy looked so cool on the poster.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I realized that he's
There
like
is
a mass murdering like
Nazi.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there is one cool shot of him. Like he's like waiting to hunt down the elves, and he's on like a hill, and he's waiting there. And he doesn't. It's daytime, and we see the sun go down, and that was a cool shot, I guess.
Definitely.
So yeah, there are like good moments, but overall, it's not really great. I mean, should we get into the Nazi aspect, given that I we just brought it up?
Well, yeah, I will say there's also one other cool shot that I'll bring up of him, which was a POV shot, which I thought was kind of cool. He's like stalking someone in the woods, and then all of a sudden you see his POV of like the camera's clearly like bouncing a little bit as he's pushing across some like brush or something. And then he slaughters someone. But it was kind of a cool little POV shot mixed in there.
Yeah.
An animated POV shot I'm always in for, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. But
But
yeah, I mean,
Nazis.
so yeah, the bad guys are literal Nazis. Black Wolf has literally a swastika like right under his throne in his room, and he uses a film projector to project Nazi propaganda. We actually see footage of Hitler and World War II and all this cut into the movie. And yeah, it's I thought it was like felt really on the nose unnecessarily and completely out of place. Like by putting this real life horrific shit in the movie, you make the rest of the movie just be like, all right, well, this is all silly now in comparison to this real life horror. So I think it was just a real miscalculation to include the. Also, if this is supposed to be thousands or millions of years in the future, why the fuck do they have like why would Hitler be the only thing to reference? Like it's kind of silly. So yeah, definitely one of the weaker parts of the movie that did not work for me.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think I was also like I was trying to keep track of the timeline at the beginning. I wrote down a few numbers. This timeline makes I don't know if somebody out there has ever made a timeline of this. Um, I would love to see it, but I couldn't follow it. And when I realized, yeah, that he's like he recovered like Nazi propaganda film from presumably thousands, millions of years ago, I'm like, how did that survive the nuclear apocalypse millions of years ago and get recovered? Like,
Yeah.
what? I
Yeah,
don't.
it makes no sense.
I was
How does that film still exist after a nuclear apocalypse?
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I was very confused on all that. Literally, we're so far into the future after a nuclear apocalypse that people are mutated into like elves and fairies. But that that canister of film from 1944 Germany survived or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I also agree it was so on the nose and so it felt so like it's like yeah they literally set this guy up to be like the worst type of person.
Yeah.
In the beginning, through narration, we're told that he tortures animals and was happy when his mom died. Like he also literally has bones sticking. Like you can like his arms are like skeleton.
Yeah.
Interestingly, they're opposite of what they should be.
Oh,
Like
really?
his down on our wrists we have two bones, but his forearm had or his like bicep area had two bones, and then his forearm only had one.
Well, they're mutated.
That's right.
Yeah.
But anyways, sorry, sidetrack. But they like set him up to be like clearly evil.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. It just felt so unnecessarily on the nose, and then also, um, like there's this idea like yeah, like propaganda bad. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Thanks.
pretty obvious. And also just from like a storytelling perspective on the movie, like we get this big battle where the bad guys uh just like win the battle, they kill a bunch of people, they're horrible. And then we have this huge chunk of the movie where the bad guys disappear. And it felt like I was very unclear like how close they are, what the distance is, and it lost the dread. Like I felt like there needed to be a sense of like of of their impending like invasion or something like that, and it just felt like we just abandoned the bad guys for like 45 minutes or something like that and just kind of forget about them, and then they come back at the end for the final battle. So I think just that was part of the reason the middle of the movie felt kind of dry and didn't have that like narrative push because the threat of the villains was like completely forgotten about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it just it worsens this whole like uh movie just feeling so long for an
Yeah,
80-minute movie.
yeah,
Like between not seeing the bad guy, like this during that whole sequence, like I think it like Avatar's like just going on a journey.
yeah.
I don't really understand what he was doing. I'm gonna be honest.
I think they were going to the battle, like they were gonna meet the army somewhere
Ah,
or something like that. But
sure.
yeah,
But yeah, anyways, a lot of the mid part there just felt so unnecessary and again with so much being told and not shown through narration and those narrative sequences, um it yeah, it just felt so long.
yeah,
I can't believe how long this movie felt.
yeah, yeah. It was pretty rough. One thing I thought was kind of another flaw. I mean, as we're talking about this, we're giving all negatives. I mean, I didn't hate the movie. I will say, well, we'll get to the rating later.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this movie probably accidentally makes the bad guys look cooler than the good guys. Because the good guys are like these lame ass little childlike bullshit fairies, and the bad guys are look fucking badass.
On the poster, you
Yeah.
get that guy.
Yes, the evil characters look really cool, and the good guys look like a children's cartoon, and they look lame.
Yeah.
So if like just I think that's just a flaw if unless you're trying to make the Nazis look cool, but like that's just how it comes off just aesthetically.
Yeah.
So I think that's another flaw with the movie.
I agree. Um, another small thing, kind of on this, like a, you know, on appearances, is thinking of the like hypersexualized imagery. And did you notice anything about the swords?
No, did they look like cocks?
Yeah,
Damn, I didn't even
the
notice.
the hilts for all the swords were just like they looked like
Balls.
yeah, balls. And
Oh,
and then obviously the sword itself is like this phallic thing,
right.
right? And so um pretty much any time that someone drew or had a sword on their belt or anything, I was like, Ralph, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Um
I didn't even notice that. But yeah, there's definitely a Freudian interpretation there, something going on.
yeah, which just adds into like the whole over sexualized concepts of the movie. So I think that a lot of these little things, like the making the bad guys seem cool, uh they're Nazis, but you know, whatever.
Just aesthetically.
Aesthetically, right.
Aesthetically, the end because they're like badass.
Right.
But the good guys are not badass. They're a little bit like pathetic. They seem weak.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's intentional, but that's the effect of it is it makes the bad guys seem like cooler and stronger than the good guys.
Yeah. And like you said, like even in animation style, the good guys look like cartoons,
Yeah.
right? They look like cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Um but so between that and also like just the hypersexualization, I think like even the even liking the animation style of the movie, it's just like there's so many like weird quirks of choices in that animation that makes me like, uh, dude,
Yeah.
you made Lord of the Rings, you know?
One
Like,
year after this.
yeah, like and this movie seems to have influenced it quite a bit. I know that that movie has a lot of rotoscoping and whatnot, but I haven't seen that, uh, but I imagine it's better than this. I'm just gonna say that, like,
I hope so. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know. Do we have much more to say about wizards?
Well, I have one quick thing, which is that this movie is PG, which of course at
Oh,
the time there was no PG-13.
right.
It's not until 84 or something in the 80s.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm still kind of surprised that this is PG. There's
Yeah.
a lot of blood.
Yep.
There's a lot of sexualization.
Yep. There's Nazi propaganda. That's
What?
the thing with the PG. Parental. I mean, they're suggesting parental guidance. I guess
Yeah, I guess so.
it's not G.
Um,
Unlike Ponyo.
it also it has this like odd aesthetic. Like if you just look at the main like the good guys, they look like good guys. They look like cool cartoon characters. I would love my kids to see Avatar doing something cool. And then I realized that he's not, no, he's like smoking a cigar through his toes and and just chatting with this with Eleanor, who I probably wouldn't want my kids to necessarily see,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. I think this is less vulgar than some of Ralph Bakshi's other stuff, like Fritz the Cat or Coonskin and stuff like that. Uh, but it's still very much like more adult animation made for adults. It's
yeah,
not intended for kids, I don't think. I mean, maybe it was intended for kids, but it's not a kids movie, I don't think.
yeah, definitely. Um, and then lastly, I think is just there is something to be said about in our current landscape of a like technology overlord who's also a Nazi in a high position of power. Just saying,
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that this movie is hitting on some themes that are relevant today,
Oh yeah.
which is so there is something to be said about that.
Yeah, I could see that. I also one last thing I had to say about the movie about being sort of the good guys are magic and the bad guys are technology. But then at the end of the movie, Avatar kills Black Wolf with a gun, with technology. And Black Wolf, I think, uses magic to like brainwash Eleanor and like get her to, because she like betrays them, but then like 10 minutes later she's like, no, it's I'm back. It's kind of silly, but so I don't know if that undercut. I don't know what the point of that was because it does undercut the idea of it just being a straight up magic versus technology because the magic guy ends up using technology to kill Black Wolf, and Black Wolf uses some magic also. So like I don't know. It undercuts the message, but I don't really know what the point is of doing that, of
Yeah.
just making it not as clear. I don't know.
I feel like when I was watching that, I was kind of interpreting it as like saying like you kind of have to compromise your your like firmly held beliefs to overcome like this monstrous enemy, right? Like
Mm-mm.
Black Wolf has to uh succumb to using magic, which he despises, right?
Hmm.
And Avatar has to succumb to using a gun to shoot, which also iconically kind of looks like it's definitely like a pistol from the 40s.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
anyways, yeah, so like I that's kind of how I interpret that bit, but I don't know if it particularly hit, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. I don't know if I have much else to say about Wizards. I'm excited to talk about Ponyo, which was a much better movie.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we just do you have the overall ratings for Wizards?
I do. I was kind of surprised. So this movie it's got 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, 69% audience,
Nice.
6.3 on IMDb, and 3.3 on Letterboxd. And that brings it to an average of 6.625 out of 10, which is, I would say, pretty high.
Yeah, it's a yeah. I could see it being around there. I could see people liking it, and people probably watched it as a kid or like if I watched this when I was like 13, I probably would have been like, "Whoa, what is this? Like this is crazy!" Like probably would have liked it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah. So my rating, I did have it as 3 stars, and as we've talked, I went on my letterbox and I put it down to 2.5.
Yeah.
'Cause I was being a little bit generous with the 3 stars to begin with, because I was like, I could see it having some appeal, and if you watch it in the right setting, like it has, like I said, I liked some of the backgrounds and some of the use of color and some of the animation was cool. But yeah, overall the storytelling and some aspects of the movie were pretty bad, to where I definitely couldn't recommend it. So I think 2.5 is a fair score.
Yeah. I did a similar thing in my head as as I like finished watching it. I was like so torn on what to give it. I was between 2 and 2.5, and I was like, maybe I should do 2.5 to be like generous. And I decided not to, so I did give it 2 stars because while I do see the appeal, and I think that some people would really like this movie, and in some states I might really like this movie. Um, but I think that watching it just sheerly as I did, uh, I did not have a good time,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'd recommend it. Uh, yeah, I don't know if like I kind of feel bad, you know. I mean, I made you guys all watch this movie.
Yeah,
If
thanks a
anyone's
lot.
following along, yeah,
This is what happens when we pick the movies we haven't seen. Although actually, Ponyo was a good choice. So maybe I get the latitude, but
yeah. I mean, we're kind of like at a mixed bag with all these movies we haven't seen. Some of them have not been very good, but
yeah,
we've hit a couple of good ones in the movies we haven't seen.
yeah. Well, yeah. We hadn't seen A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night,
Yeah.
and that ended up being very good. Cat Person and Blue Chips were kind of letdowns. And then this Wizards was a letdown, but Ponyo was good.
But State of Maine and also Shadow of the Vampire we hadn't seen,
Yeah, those were okay. Those,
and
those were
they were
solid.
pretty mid. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
maybe even better than mid.
And actually, Metropolis too was
Hmm.
pretty good. I mean, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, and then when you go into our half episodes, many of those, I mean, uh, Trap you hadn't seen, of course.
Well, yeah, but Trap's a
Companion.
masterpiece.
Well, not yeah, exactly. There you go.
Trap is the greatest movie ever
Y'all
made.
heard
So.
it here first. Probably only, but
Trap is better than Citizen Kane. I'm saying it.
Whoa.
Just kidding. That's a joke.
Yeah,
No,
nobody soundbite
yeah, don't no one cut that out of context,
that.
please. All right.
Cancel.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's that for Wizards. Um, and now we get on to Ponyo.
Yeah.
This was one of the last Miyazaki movies that I haven't seen yet. And yeah, it's rated G. Not many movies get rated G anymore. And honestly, this one I understand why it's rated G. It's fun for the whole family. Um, so yeah, it came out in 2008. So I watched this in Japanese with subtitles. It's on Max, but you watched the dub, right?
I did. I watched the English version, mostly because I went on Max. I searched Ponyo. The Ponyo poster comes up, and I thought that was the thing.
Yeah, they have both on there, but they're separate, like separate movies, kind of.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, so it's a little bit unnecessarily confusing on Max. I think they are trying to make it more clear, like this is the English one, this is the Japanese one, but it just makes it harder to find the Japanese one. It's kind
yeah.
of weird that you can't just play it and then go to
Pick.
the audio settings and
I
change it.
and that's actually what I tried to do because I
Yeah,
was like, I know obviously I'm like, okay, I don't particularly want to watch the dubbed, but then when I tried to change it, there wasn't an option, so I was like, I guess I'll just watch it.
yeah,
But yeah, and you know what though, Liam Neeson, that was kind of cool.
yeah,
But
yeah. I think the Ghibli dubs are supposed to be usually pretty good, so definitely not the worst one to watch the dub for. But yeah, I mean, basically, the basic story is, well, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess. Ponyo is a little fish that looks like a human, has a human face kind of a thing, but it's a fish. And there's a magical man named Fujimoto. He lives in a ship in the ocean, and he uses potions and magic to alter things in the ocean to create. He's sort of like Aquaman. He's sort of like Aquaman. And he is Ponyo's dad. Ponyo ends up escaping and gets saved by uh, Sasuke, this little 5-year-old boy who lives with his mom by the water. And yeah, Sasuke and Ponyo fall, form a relationship. And yeah, Ponyo sort of wants to become human, and there are consequences to that, I guess. But that's sort of the basic setup for the movie. Definitely a good choice for magic movies. I think there's a lot of magic in the movie in a
yeah,
lot of different ways. So yeah, what were your overall thoughts on Ponyo?
uh, this movie rocks.
Yeah,
Even like right from the start, there's a cute title card, and it's got like the waves and the boats and the fish and a different animation style than what we see for the movie. But
mhm.
I was pretty hooked right away. I think very stark contrast to the narration that we're starting with in Wizards. This movie, I feel like there's no need to have a ton of exposition in this. It's just you see right at the beginning we see Ponyo as a fish kind of escaping um the boat, I guess, the ship.
Yeah, submarine, I
Submarine.
guess maybe.
Um,
There's all it we see all these jellyfish. It's sort of like a school of jellyfish, I guess, or something like that. And there's Fujimoto doing his like magic. He has like a bubble around him, and yeah, she Ponyo sort of ends up getting taken by the jellyfish away, and that's how she ends up getting found by Sasuke. But yeah, it's a
yeah,
really cool opening sequence.
yeah, and it was yeah. So I mean, right from the beginning, I was pretty hooked, and I think all the way through, I mean, I've really enjoyed the animation style here. I think there is like the what kind of looks like colored pencil scenery at times. Like I don't really know how to describe it, but and then like the characters are kind of maybe more cell shaded or whatever. Um, and I thought that worked really well for me. Like uh where Sasuke would be like going up to the mailbox and the mailbox or like a water faucet or something, and much of the scenery is like in again what looks like colored pencil esque like shading or whatever. I don't know much about how animation's made, but and then turns on the faucet, but then the faucet and the water that comes out is all in the more traditional style of the movie, and I thought that blending of styles worked really well for me and was not jarring like I kind of thought Wizards was at times.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the animation of like the nature and all that. The I love the way the waves are animated, like in the storm sequence in the middle of the movie.
yeah,
The waves just look. I mean, they're also like magical, like wave things. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, just an extremely cute, like sweet movie. It's beautiful. The nature looks beautiful. Uh, and yeah, it's just like I feel like it's just super cute. That's like the perfect word to describe the movie.
I agree.
Sasuke and Ponyo are cute, and but not in a like obviously it is a childlike movie. It sort of has it's a main character is a child and all that, but it's not like frivolous. Like it feels real and like I feel like it's similar to like My Neighbor Totoro, like where we have this sort of a childlike perspective, but it's very like magical and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's also exciting at times, like
Oh
with
yeah.
that wave sequence when the waves look awesome, but also they are kind of chasing the car, right? And the mom wants to do that. She wants to go through the like a trench or something in the
Yeah.
road, a little bit of flooding in the road, and I was like, don't do this. Like I felt kind of thrilled in the moment, and of course she's gonna
Yeah.
make it. It's like a kids movie and whatever. But and again later on when uh at the during the climax, I think there's also a lot of excitement, and I think that really works a lot for me here. It's very fun, it's very cute, but also there's some excitement and other stuff going on too, which
Oh
is
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's just a yeah, there's a lot of great sequences in the movie. But yeah, also the score is really great. I think in that tsunami sequence, I think the score is like an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
uh,
It sounded like not the same, but similar, like similar, I don't know, musical motifs or something like that. I don't know. But the score is really, really good. And it's just like a great vibe for the movie. Like I could see this having a very high rewatch value.
definitely.
Yeah.
Also, this so after after Ponyo becomes a girl, we realize there's consequences to this, and one of those consequences, probably the most damning, is that the moon begins falling to Earth or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Dude, I think I know how Roland Emmerich came up with his idea for the 2023 masterpiece, Moonfall.
Yeah,
It might be
masterpiece.
this. Yeah, masterpiece. And it's amazing that this movie is takes it like has that concept before obviously Moonfall, but it actually does something interesting with it, and then Moonfall exists,
Yeah, that's
and
funny.
that
I
movie
didn't make that
sucks.
connection. I never saw Moonfall.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
But yeah, it's like uh, there's the tsunami because when she escapes, there's like a tsunami that follows her because her dad is trying to get her back. Um, and it sort of it floods everything. Like it's a pretty it would be an extremely devastating tsunami. But is that why the moon is altered? Because the sea has risen so much that sort of something to do with the tides and the moon and that relationship. I don't know what was up with that.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I at one point uh I think at one point her dad is says something like the the or it might be like people on a ship are saying like the moon is getting too close. It's pulling all of the ocean to it. The gravity's pulling all the ocean to it. So I thought that was why the ocean was rising. Was because of that. Because at first the dad like sends some waves after her or
Right.
whatever, but then everything's kind of fine for a little while, right?
Mm.
And then the flooding happens later, and I think that's because when she turns into a girl, for some reason, the moon gets closer, and then the water is kind of pulled up,
Mhm.
kind of like a
Yeah.
giant tide,
Right, right.
which also provides some really awesome imagery of like the city being
Yeah.
underwater and all that, like really awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But
And like the trees just poking out of the water
yeah,
or his Lisa and Sasuke's house like right on the edge of the water is it's really awesome.
yeah, and also just like ancient water creatures that are
Yeah.
like somehow like they I guess they're coming out of uh dormancy or whatever, like wherever they have been. I don't know, like deep water.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
They're from the Devonian age, as they
yeah,
say. But yeah, I wasn't sure if it was because of the Fujimoto's magic that he has kept some creatures like alive somehow. I don't know.
yeah. That would make sense. I will say that's one thing about this movie is the magic is everywhere, but to a point where I don't actually understand a lot of what's happening at times.
Yeah.
Why is the moon getting closer? I think it's because that's a consequence of her becoming a girl,
Hmm.
but I don't know why. And also, yeah, like those ancient creatures. I'm not really sure. Like, so some stuff I'm not really sure about what's happening,
Yeah.
but it works. I still love it. It's fun.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing in a lot of Miyazaki movies, and I don't know, it works for me sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. And I need to go back and rewatch some of his movies, but a lot of his movies will just have some random magic stuff happen, and you don't. It's really unexplained, and it's just like, okay, I guess that's just what happened. I don't know, and you just kind of go along with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it worked for this movie. I think having this magical guy be underwater, like the ocean being so unknown, like it kind of takes advantage of that aspect of things where, who know there could be a magical guy underwater. We don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a kind of a cool concept.
Totally.
Um, but yeah, I think another interesting thing in this movie is the way kids are treated in like Japanese culture versus American culture, and the way maybe that's part of the reason this is a movie obviously for kids, but it's still actually good and like it's not I don't know, it's not a fucking like Minions movie or like some bullshit where there's like chaos along the screen and there's always a joke here
Yeah.
and it's vulgar and like chaotic and bright and crazy just to keep kids like attention because they're like limited attention span. I feel like in Japan maybe kids are treated kind of just as like humans, like which we don't really treat kids that way in America. Like at one point, Sasuke is like gonna go to see his mom at the. He's leaving school to see his mom at uh, the old person's home where she works at, and it's raining and there's a storm, and the teacher's like, "Oh, do you want to wait here? Well, so your mom can pick you up?" And he's like, "No, it's okay. I'll take the shortcut," and he just like leaves. And I know I've seen on the internet there are these I think there's like a TV show about this of like they have like a little kid like a 4-year-old kid like go to a supermarket and like buy things and they like walk through the town and they go and they run the errand and they walk back and it's just like giving them responsibilities. And also during the tsunami, Lisa just leaves Sasuke and Ponyo alone. And
Yeah.
she's like, all right, you got to stay here and keep guard of Ponyo, and I'm gonna go to the old person's home and make sure they're okay. And she leaves her 5-year-old home alone in the middle of a tsunami.
Dude, he puts on the captain's hat.
Yeah,
He's got it.
that was really cute.
I love that.
Yeah, that was awesome. But like
Yeah.
just giving kids that type of responsibility, like, and I don't know, at least in the movie, like Sasuke is a very compassionate and like kind kid. So yeah, very very just interesting the ways children are treated differently in Japanese culture, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You don't need like Subway Surfer at the bottom of the screen or
Yeah.
or whatever. Um, yeah, I mean, I think these movies definitely take advantage of that. Whereas, like you mentioned, and you even mentioned Minions or whatever, but it even, I mean, it's even with like some of the things that we consider, or maybe I consider, like less childish, right? With like Moana or whatever. Like, I just saw Moana 2. I liked the original Moana, and Moana 2 has like, there's like a couple butt jokes or whatever, and like, it's just like what are you guys doing? Like, you made a fine first movie about like identity and whatever, right? And in the second one, you have to like, you feel like you have to throw in like stupid butt. I mean, the first one has like the half the jokes in that one are like the chicken anyways that doesn't, its eyes are all wacky and whatever. So like, I don't know, it's like all these jokes in like American kids movies, animated kids movies are like, so yeah, they just feel childish, right? But in
Yeah.
this, like, yeah, I can I can I can just enjoy this movie for, I don't know, like
Yeah.
it giving him that responsibility and stuff.
Yeah. And it feels like this movie's like primary thing was just to make a good movie and it doesn't have to pander to children really. And I think it can be enjoyed by anyone. It's not just something that kids will enjoy and parents have to suffer through. I think anyone would enjoy this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why like Studio Ghibli is so enjoyed by so many adults here in America is because like it, a lot of the animated stuff that we get here is so targeted to kids, um like aggressively targeted to kids. Like we don't want to, no adult really wants to watch Minions.
Yeah.
I don't even want to show my kids Minions.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but
One day.
yeah. Um, but these movies are just they're wholesome and enjoyable and cute and aesthetic for everyone, right? And they have that excitement, so like it keeps uh people that need that on the edge too. But it's also just a whole wholesome story about like friendship, family, and a little bit about identity at the end, right? With Ponyo has to make the choice and give up her magic to become a girl, and if is that really what she wants and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, feels like
Yeah.
a wholesome story.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that the whole ending sequence is just awesome. Like the I don't know, whatever Fujimoto's magic does to save the old people and they can run and they're like, are we on the other side? Are we is this heaven? Like what is going on?
That's right.
And then we haven't even mentioned Ponyo's mom, who's like a sea goddess. She's like just
Love it.
yeah, really cool. Um and yeah, there's just so many really cool sequences in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to bring up is that Ponyo becoming a girl for the first time. Uh, she becomes like she acts very childish at first,
Yeah.
and I thought that worked really well. I think sometimes that
Yeah.
like trope in movies at times can be like annoying of like the uh, feeling like a newborn type of thing or whatever. But it worked really well here, where like it adds a little bit of comedy in that middle section to keep everyone laughing, but it also like uh, Sasuke has to like help like guide her in like eating the ramen and doing all these small little
Yeah.
things, right? Um, but there's also those funny moments of like she can like control all of her toes for some reason, and he's like whoa, and
Yeah.
he can't and stuff. And so like I think it really works here, and I think it helps kind of keep the story going and keep the like tone going all the way through, which was pretty good. Even though I don't always like that trope in movies when like
Mm,
oh someone like it's like they're new to this world or to this environment, so they act childish or like a
mm.
baby or whatever, right?
I think it made sense. It could also have made sense too, because our main character is a child also. So
Sure.
it makes sense that they're getting along, sort of the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought Ponyo was very funny.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I thought all that worked for me.
You could describe her as a fish out of water, kind of.
Yeah, literally a fish out of water. Also, completely insane at the beginning of the movie. He like captures Ponyo in his little bucket, which also so cute. He brings it to the school and then he hides it, and then he's like, "Well, what if a cat comes by?" And he just puts like a one leaf on top of it, and I was like, that is just so accurate to like what a kid would do,
Yeah.
of like having and like trying, but like it wouldn't actually work, but trying their best. Um, but he shows Ponyo to a bunch of people, and he's like, "Look, I found a goldfish." And Ponyo has like a human face, like a face. It's like this is not a goldfish, but everyone's like, "Oh, I like your goldfish." I'm like, "Well, this isn't a goldfish." So I don't know what was up with that. Um,
Yeah. It's just I guess what goldfish are in
do
this
they
world.
say goldfish in the English dub?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because in
Yeah.
the sub, that's what they say. He's like, "Oh, I found a goldfish." I don't know, very strange.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wrote down goldfish, so I think they said that. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, she and also she just like squirts people with water.
yeah,
And
that's pretty
that's
funny.
it's funny at first, but then it also is how Sasuke realizes not to trust the dad.
Mm.
The I forget his name. I wrote it down somewhere, but
Fujimoto.
Fujimoto. Because like and this was a really cool sequence I thought when Fujimoto at the end is like trying to convince Sasuke to come with him to the old people's place. And there's that one uh like lady that didn't go and is like, you can't trust him or whatever, right? And then Ponyo wakes up. Ponyo's asleep in the bucket and wakes up and sees the Fujimoto and just squirts him with water. And then Sasuke realizes not to trust him and starts running toward.
Even though he was being good, actually,
Yes,
Fujimoto in that moment.
but I think there was like a lot of tension there of like, is he gonna make the right choice? And is he actually being is Fujimoto actually being good? Is Sasuke gonna make the right choice and stuff? And I thought it built up pretty well where he decides not to trust him and then runs and then still ends up he doesn't make the right choice, but everything works out.
Yes. And yeah, I think Fujimoto as like the antagonist of the movie is also really good. Um, just because it's really about like hates humanity kind of. He hates people that don't live underwater. Well, whatever, he hates humans because they don't live underwater, I guess. So he sort of retreated and made his own universe underwater. Um, but he is still human at the end of the day, and he has that desire to control Ponyo, and like that also I think that is just a thing that parents go through when your kid is growing up. And yeah, I think the movie does like speak to that really well of a parent trying to keep their kid with them and like struggling with letting them go and become their own person. And I think the antagonist in the movie is not actually like a villain, really. He's just a flawed person, and it's kind of a natural human experience that the movie is exploring. So I thought he was a really interesting character, and I liked how he sort of came around at the end, and I thought that was interesting. Maybe that's also part of the thing that makes the movie so good is that like his character is just like a real adult character dealing with a real thing, uh, and it's like it's a kids movie, but it has the adult perspective, and it like approaches things in a mature way in a certain way. Um, so yeah. Anyway, I just like the character of Fujimoto, and his struggle was interesting to me.
Yeah. And I think it also speaks again to like the the minionization of like of
Oh
American like cartoons, right? Where
yeah,
like every villain now has to be like trying to destroy the world or
yeah,
whatever. Like Sonic 3 or whatever. Like every I don't even remember. Like every villain has to be this like overwhelmingly powerful thing or trying to become this overwhelmingly powerful thing to destroy something or to be evil, right? To
mhm,
be evil.
yeah,
And here you don't need a villain to be evil. The villain and our protagonist are all actually trying to stop the world from ending, right? That's like they
yeah,
all want the world to survive, right?
mhm,
Um and and I think that's one of the reasons why I really like that sequence when Sasuke has to realize who to trust, or if to trust or whatever, right? And even though he doesn't make the right choice, he like everything works out. But that moment kind of feels very tense, right?
yeah,
Because the choice feels very powerful, but everyone's actually working together. He just doesn't know that,
yeah,
right? Or everyone has the same goals, and he just
yeah.
doesn't know that.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
made sense. Also, the old lady character being the skeptic the whole movie, and then at the end, sort of having her mind blown
yeah,
was really cool.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, also a theme in this movie that it's not a primary theme of the movie, I don't think, but at the beginning, we see these sequences of like pollution in the ocean,
yes,
and like environmentalism and humanity's relationship with nature is like a theme throughout Miyazaki's movies. um and yeah, in this one we see a lot of when they're in the harbor, there's like a ton of pollution, and like Fujimoto is like, oh, it's disgusting over here. And there's at one oh when Ponyo is first escaping, like whatever, escape exploring, she's swimming out, she's almost getting caught in a net that's
yeah.
like trying to pick up the pollution. Um, and so that's just sort of a theme that's also in this movie that's throughout his work.
Yeah, and I thought here I almost kind of wish there was maybe more. Not that it really needed it, but like I remember it so specifically at the beginning with that net trying to scoop stuff up and then she gets caught in the glass jar.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
And and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if that will be a bigger piece of this, right? Because it's the movie's all about ocean and this fish out of water and all this, right?" And and it doesn't really end up mattering a whole lot. And I think that's okay, but I was maybe anticipating more with that, but also, yeah, it's still good to just show it, right, and
yeah.
have it in there even a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that whole sequence of Ponyo, that's how she's found, I guess. But of Sasuke like trying to save her and like try it's very yeah, there is a lot of moments in the movie, or there are a lot of moments in the movie that uh are tense and kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, like, oh, like I hope this works out.
Yeah,
Because also like all the characters are so likable
yeah,
that you don't want anyone to like, they're likable, but they're also realistic, like humans.
yeah,
Like Ponyo's or Sasuke's mom is not like a perfect person, obviously, like, but she's still a good person and trying her best in this like difficult situation, you know. And like, there's that moment when Sasuke's dad won't is like gone and he can't make it back for dinner, and she's mad about it and
mm,
everything, and Sasuke's kind of still like fine, and he's communicating in like Morse
Morse,
code, yeah, with the light with his dad, and that's very sweet. But then like the mom is mad about it, but then eventually she just kind of like gives him a hug, and it's like a very sweet, real moment just between like a mother and a son, I think, and like those kind of things. I don't know. It speaks to real human experiences. Also, I guess a lot
Yeah.
of kids' cartoons like are just silly diversions that don't have it's just oh you watch it and you distract your kids for 90 minutes and then whatever. But this one I think actually has a lot of real human moments and stuff to actually connect to. So I think that all worked really well.
Yeah, totally. And I think also in that moment when the dad is trying to get in touch and I think on the phone he says something like can you help me out with mom, or can you talk to mom for me, or something, like tell her that I won't be home, right? And Sasuke says, I think you might have to tell her yourself. And that's when she gets, and obviously she gets mad and stuff, but there's this like idea of like this family dynamic that's really like understandable, right? Like it feels like a real family, right? And
Yeah.
like yeah, like I could totally imagine a dad calling and being like, hey, you know, love you, buddy. Do you think you could tell mom that I won't be home and I'll, like, whatever? And then being like, dude, mom's not gonna be happy. I can't tell her that. Like,
Yeah.
and like the kid's not upset, but of course the mom is and everything. And like it just feels so real and so
Yeah.
like raw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like My Neighbor Totoro is my favorite Miyazaki movie, and that one also has it's like a father and two daughters, and their mom has cancer, and she's getting so she's not really in the movie for most of it, but they move to a new house and they start exploring the world, and like that real emotional like difficult situation that they're in. The kids are like escaping to this like magical world kind of a thing. So like there is magic and it is like a movie that kids can relate to and everything, but also it's like grounded in like real human experiences. So I think that's part of the reason that the movies are like they're poignant and they connect so much more than otherwise, because they're
Yeah.
based in real human things.
Yeah. Yeah, even if the world is totally fantastic, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, like goldfish don't look like this, but we all understand a kid trying to hide something and doing a really bad job at it or
Yeah.
something, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, this uh I think this movie just felt so real for so many reasons, and it also just looked really beautiful, and uh just really enjoyed all the animation. Also, just a small little side note. Again, didn't particularly mean to watch the dub, but the English version was pretty good. The voice acting all seemed good. Um, again, Liam Neeson's in it, which is kind of funny, and a few other. I think Noah Cyrus might be the kid.
Okay.
So like, there's some notable people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would probably just recommend obviously just watching this subbed, but if you happen to accidentally watch the dubbed, it's not a bad experience. So.
Nice. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a great movie. Love the animation, the beautiful scenery and everything. And I just had a great time watching it. And yeah, I think you could really watch this with anyone and they'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think yeah, I mean there's one small other thing that I wonder about at the end that I kind of forgot about until there's like this idea of identity of Ponyo wanting to become a girl, and the dad kind of being like, not okay with that at first, but then being like, if you want to, you have to, give up your magic or whatever. And I wonder if this is like interpreted at all. I didn't look into this, but as like a queer lens, like a trans lens or anything,
Hmm.
of like, you know, uh wanting like feeling like your identity is truly somewhere else, or like in a different way,
Hmm.
and not feeling supported in that
Oh, yeah.
with your family, right?
Yeah, I could see that interpretation for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that at all, but now that you mention it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that interpretation for sure.
Yeah. I don't think it like hit me until the end, like with that sequence when they're at the underwater kind of place where like everyone can breathe and run. But and there is that like moment of like the parents both being like, if this is, they're kind of coming to that realization, like if this is what you need and want, like we'll support you, but you have to give up your magic or whatever, right? And I'm like, I wonder if this is interpreted this way. And I didn't look into it at all, but I think it might be interesting to watch this again with that lens in mind and see if it hits differently or not. I don't know, but
No, I could see
yeah,
that interpretation for sure. Almost, I mean, a lot of movies, yeah, you can just interpret it different ways,
yeah,
and it just kind of adds to the movie. Sort of like I don't know, like the Matrix. Like you don't have to look at it that way, but like it's there. You know what I mean?
yeah, totally.
Um, but yeah, the only thing that I don't know, it's not really a complaint about the movie, but the tsunami being, I don't know, so sort of, I don't know, I guess it's a tsunami, right? It's they mention tsunamis, uh, uh but the way it just is a little bit like, how do I like sanitized, I guess. Like there is no destruction, from no one dies, the whole town works everything out. And it is like it's sweet and it's a kids movie, and like that would be a real fucking downer to like, oh, 85 dead from the tsunami, your grandmother dead, like not his grandmother, but your all your friends and family that you know dead. Like
Yeah,
that would just suck, and yeah, it would suck. But like I don't know, it's just a little bit uh kidded, a little bit too childlike of a depiction of like a really horrible natural disaster. Like, so it didn't ruin the movie for me or anything, and I still really liked like when this town is flooded and all the imagery was really nice, and them in the enlarged boat was really cool. So I really enjoyed all that, but that was just a little bit of a like a little bit of a thing that I was like, oh, that's it's kind of a watered down, ironically watered down version of what this would really be like. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah, it's not really a complaint with the movie or a problem. It's just something that I noticed, I guess.
yeah. I could totally. I think I noticed that a little bit during the moment too, in the moment, but I kind of was like, eh, everyone has to survive. But it
Yeah,
is a G-rated movie. But
yeah,
also, yeah, I can totally see like, yeah, there's a huge fucking natural disaster that would obliterate this town.
right.
And everyone's just fine on boats and their houses are fine. Like they're just gonna move back to their house after. Like but yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
agreed. All right.
So I think anything else for Ponyo, or should we do our ratings for this one?
Honestly, I think we can just get to the ratings. Do you want to do the overall
Yeah.
rate? What do we have a name for this? The rating
Yeah, the
aggregation, the at the rating breakdown,
breakdown is great.
the rating breakdown.
Yeah, which is what we've always called it,
Yes.
as you guys know.
All right,
Yeah.
Ryan. What's the rating breakdown for Ponyo?
Ponyo gets 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 83% audience score, 7.6 on IMDb, and 4.1 on Letterboxd, with an average of 3.8, 8.3 out of 10, not 3.8,
Yeah.
8.3 out of 10,
Yeah.
which is a very
Yeah.
high average. So,
Yeah, very, very good score, and I would agree with it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was, yeah, pretty fantastic. One of my favorite Miyazaki movies, even though I do need to go back and rewatch some of them. But yeah, I loved it.
nice. Yeah, I give it 4 stars out of 5. I could totally see myself bumping this up to 4.5 with the rewatch or something, but I loved it. It was great. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, one of the best end credit songs, maybe
Oh,
of
it
all
was so
time.
good. That was pretty awesome.
It's like in the dub, is there an English version of the song or is it the
It
Japanese
is an
song?
English version.
Really?
Yeah, and I
Oh
thought it was still
man.
pretty good.
Okay, I
But
want to.
I'll have to watch. I'll have to listen to the.
I now I have to listen to it in English. But the subtitles were just funny. It's like Ponyo was a little fish. Now
Yeah,
she's a little girl. Like
that's pretty much what the English
okay,
one was. Yeah, it's
just but
pretty
it's just
awesome.
an extremely cute end credits, and it's the end credits are like these beautiful paintings or drawings or whatever.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just such a sweet movie, and I could definitely see myself rewatching this many times.
yeah, definitely. I feel the same. Also, hour and 40 minutes, but it felt so much shorter than than
Then
Wizards.
oh yeah, for sure. That's the thing. Like runtime, like I mean, obviously it matters if like you can't necessarily fit certain movies into your day if they're 3 hours long versus an hour and a half. But like a 2 hour movie can feel shorter than an 80-minute movie if the shorter one sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right.
Also, something to notice about just this whole episode in general, right? This episode is about movies about magic. And we both picked animated movies. And I think
Yeah,
there's a lot to say about that, right? I mean, not that we want to say a lot about that, but animation does help storytellers and filmmakers tell stories that are fantastic, right? And fantastical and magical.
yeah,
Um, And while there are like, things like uh I'm just gonna throw out like the Harry Potter series or the Lord of the Rings series, right? Like
Yeah.
that make these epic stories with magic and stuff in live action. Um, that it can be really well done in animation, I think. And these are maybe two different examples of how animation can help us tell stories with magic. One that maybe we didn't appreciate so much, but then one that we really enjoyed. So.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely animation gives people a lot of freedom to be creative and take advantage of all their crazy ideas with magic and all that. So, yeah, there's magic in probably almost every Miyazaki movie. Just off the top of my head, pretty much all of them except The Wind Rises has some kind of magic or unexplainable weird stuff happening. So, yeah. Um yeah, all right, cool. Well, I guess that's that. I feel like this was a quick episode.
Yeah,
I feel like we kind of I guess Wizards we didn't really
we
like, so we didn't have as much to say about it. But yeah,
yeah, and a lot of Wizards I feel like was like I feel like we just had the same things to say. So
yeah,
there's a lot of kind of agreement and uh you know and again I'm just gonna apologize to the crowd here for if you guys are following along and watching our suggestions every week.
yeah. Well,
Maybe not my best suggestion.
at least Wizards was free.
Yeah,
It's on archive.org, so
yeah,
anyone can watch it. So that's the at least it's free and short, even though it wasn't very good.
yeah.
Isn't that? Oh, whatever. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's time for us to get into our next thing. We're gonna take from the topic cup. Is that what we need a word for this too? So now we got the rating breakdown. We have a name for that segment of our show. So we kind of need a name for the ending of the show when we pull our topic for the next episode. We don't have one yet. And we're fucking 11 episodes into the damn thing. So we'll figure it out.
Well, when we started this, we had the idea. We actually came up with this idea from a alliterative thing,
Yeah.
the genre generator. Although
They're not all
they're
genres, and it's hard to say. The
it's
genre,
not, yeah,
genre generator.
doesn't really flow off the tongue.
No, it doesn't. I like topic or
Yeah.
category. The category cup.
Oh, wait.
The
What?
category
It's right
cup.
there.
How did it take us this long
It's
to
been there
figure
the
that
whole
out?
time.
All right.
The category cup.
The category cup.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we're going to be pulling our category slash topic for episode 12 right now. But also, just so everyone knows, episode 11.5, we're actually not going to cover a new movie. We're just going to do a preview of the Oscars. So we're going to record it a little bit in advance of the Oscars. We're going to predict every category. We're going to have points for each category. And then after the Oscars on episode 12.5, we're going to go over and see who won, who got the most right, and, well, who got the most points. I think it'll be a fun episode. And yeah, so that'll be episode 11.5. But now we're going to take our topic. You can do the honors, Ryan.
That's right. Over many of our episodes are recorded over Zoom.
Yeah.
And Shane is the holder of the category
So
cup.
I've been pulling them for weeks, pretty much.
So this is a kind of a rare experience
Yeah.
where I get a.
Oh man, episode 12. What's the topic? That can't be a good.
This is stoner movies.
Oh, interesting.
Ralph Bakshi's Wizards. Maybe you could have aligned here.
Stoner
Movies.
Okay.
This is, yeah, okay. This also we had the college movies not too long ago, and we could have picked stoner movies for these, I'm sure.
Maybe, yeah. I think there's a lot of good options here.
Yeah.
It should be pretty easy to pick, honestly. So, as far as stoner movies, should we include movies that does weed or marijuana, cannabis, etc. have to be in the movie, or can it just be a movie that would be good to watch while stoned? I feel like it should be involved somehow.
Okay. But then if it can does it have to be like a centerpiece to it? For example, Cabin in the Woods has a really fun bit
Stoner.
about it has a stoner and a funny
I
bit.
think that plays into the plot in
Yeah.
a certain way, so I think it would be valid.
Okay.
I think even if it's just a character smoking a lot of weed in the movie, I mean, I think maybe where you draw the line is like scary movie.
Yeah.
It's like, does
yeah.
that count? Because he's just a character who smokes a lot of weed.
Yeah.
There's a stoner character in the movie, but that's more boring. I think this topic is pretty rich with good movies, so we don't necessarily need to
pick scary movie?
yeah, exactly. We don't need to go to the edges of like, this barely qualifies,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, right off the top of my head, the first one I think of, or first two I think of are Friday and The Big Lebowski.
Ah,
So I think those would be good picks. Also,
dang, that is big movies there.
yeah, I think those would both be good. Also, Inherent Vice could be a good one. I was talking about Paul Thomas Anderson before. I think there's a lot of smoking weed in the movie. It definitely has a stoned vibe, but yeah, it's sort of like The Long Goodbye, where it's like there's like it feels like a stoner movie, but I don't know that he's actually smoking weed. I think he's just smoking a lot of cigarettes in that movie. I don't think that one counts. But The Big Lebowski, obviously, the dude is smoking a lot of weed throughout that, and Friday that's the whole thing.
Nice,
So yeah,
lots of options.
do you have anything you're thinking of off the top of your head, or are you?
Off the top of my head, like the Pineapple Express comes up as a thing that I know of.
Yeah,
I don't remember particularly liking that movie, but to be
yeah,
honest,
yeah. I feel like the Pineapple Express isn't that great.
um,
Okay.
and like another like Super Troopers comes up on my in my head, but again, not really a I don't really like that movie, but
Mm.
yeah.
I will say a movie with high rewatch value to me, Smiley Face. Big
Um,
stoner movie. Obviously, being high is the whole. It's definitely a stoner movie. Uh, Directed by Greg Araki, and that one I've seen that a few times. It's a very funny movie. Also, Half Baked would be one. Although, yeah, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I think there's too many other drugs to
mm,
consider it just a stoner movie. There's like they do mescaline and LSD and all sorts of crazy shit. So, I don't know if that fully counts, but I mean, it's a great movie. Also, Cheech and Chong would be obviously options.
I do like the idea of the Big Lebowski. I've only seen it once,
Hmm.
and I remember thinking at the time that I've got to rewatch it because I think the first time I was like, it was good, but I wasn't particularly overwhelmed with it, or
Hmm.
maybe I was particularly overwhelmed with it. Like I don't know if I loved it right away, and I feel like it was one of those movies where like watching it, I was like, I know that rewatching this will make me enjoy it more, you
Yeah.
know. So that could be a fun rewatch.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. That's one of the movies I've seen the most, and I actually kind of agreed. Where the first time I watched it, I liked it, but I was confused. And I mean, this is a weird comparison, but almost like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the first time you're watching, it, you're like trying to figure out what's going on, and it's kind of confusing and weird. So you're like I liked it, but I didn't understand it really. But The Big Lebowski, I think, rewards rewatches where you're not as worried about trying to figure out all the details of the plot, and you can
Yeah,
kind of just go along for the ride and enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas would be kind of a fun pick, but I think Friday and The Big Lebowski are the would be probably the two I'd be between maybe.
that'd be crazy if we picked those two right now. That'd be
We
that'd
could,
be crazy,
we
right?
could.
Unless.
I mean, I'd be down for it. Those are like two of my most rewatched movies. I'm always down to rewatch them, and it'll be fun.
Well, I'm in.
All right, do you want The Big Lebowski? I'll
Yeah, I'll
take
take that.
Friday.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. That was easy.
Sweet.
This was one of our easier.
Yeah, I mean, like you said at the beginning, it's a pretty big category
Yeah,
and a lot of good movies.
yeah.
A lot of bad movies too, but
Yeah,
stay a lot of good
a
stuff.
lot of bad movies, but
Yeah.
also Smile. I like Smiley Face, so if anyone's out there and you want to watch a fun stoner movie, go watch Smiley Face. It's like short and funny and a good movie.
Dude, Where's My Car is another one that comes up in my head of like
Yeah,
you know,
the Chinese drive-through scene would be funny to talk about. It'd be difficult to talk about without doing an accent. I mean, come on, could we reenact the scene on the show? I mean, I don't know.
I have to go. There's a place I have to go. It's called Anywhere But Here.
Hey, you brought it up. You brought up Dude, Where's My Car? What else am I going to talk about?
Fun movie, but yeah, maybe not a podcast movie.
It could be.
It could be,
It could be.
but I'm down for the
Yeah.
Big Lebowski and Friday.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So
Great choices.
the Big Friday, the big Le, the big Friedabowski.
Oh, that's actually tough. The big Frybowski. That could work. The big Frybowski.
It's not terrible.
The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
I
Wait,
think the Big Frabowski is good.
Frabowski. The Big Frabowski.
The Big
It
Frabowski.
kind of works.
Yeah, but and then do we start with the Big Lebowski and then do Friday second?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one.
It's in the middle. Didn't we do another one that way though?
Yeah,
I think we did.
Nightmare on. No, we ended up with Nightmare on.
Elm Street Racerhead.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
I think the Big Frabowski.
it works.
Start with the Big Lebowski. Second, we do Friday. All right, hell yeah, this is gonna be great.
Whew.
All
Good.
right,
Awesome.
That was an easy topic.
Yeah,
All right,
cool. That's a fun one. Now here's the question: are you gonna get stoned?
When I watch them, maybe maybe I'll watch them. Maybe just rewatch them one time and then rewatch them again. Stoned. For real, these are like two of my favorite comedies, like
Nice.
most rewatchable movies. I mean, I got a couple weeks. I might as well watch them twice. Why not?
Hell yeah.
I'll just be, my letterbox will just be the two like over and over, just
Fun.
rewatching them. All right, cool. Well,
Well-
I guess that's that. I feel like this was a pretty short episode.
Yeah.
We were nice, kept things pretty good. So yeah, I guess tune in next week for our Oscar predictions. We'll go watch these great stoner comedies, and
You should too.
I should.
Y'all following along should also watch
Yeah.
these great stoner movies.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, follow us on Letterboxd, Mind Your Movies. From there, you can find our Instagram, our Blue Sky, and all of our podcast and YouTube links. And yeah, if anyone wants to send us an email, mindyourmoviespodcast@gmail.com. We will respond on the show. We could at the end of the show we could read emails perhaps.
Yeah.
And give us a 5-star rating if you are feeling generous.
Yeah.
It's actually really easy to do on like Apple Podcasts. You literally just scroll to the bottom and you just click 5 stars.
It's so easy.
Very simple.
It's actually harder not to.
Well, I don't know about that. Technically no, but I mean
But yeah, also our personal letterbox
Yeah.
are on the Mind Your Movies letterbox as a link as well. So if you're interested in some of that stuff that we watch, that we talked about at the beginning of the show, we don't have a lot of time to talk about all of that stuff, obviously.
yeah.
But if you're interested in all that, if you follow us, sometimes we write some stuff.
Yeah. We'll and I got like a shitload of lists and everything on my
Yeah.
box and everything. So go check it out.
All right, y'all.
Yeah. Cool. We'll see you next week.